120490, request approval of 2012 proposed millage rates, authorization of the 5-year levy advertisement with public hearing date, and approval of required public hearing.
Mr. Manager, give a background information on this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. What we have before you is a request to authorize staff to post an advertisement and set a public hearing for July 11th with respect to the 2012 millage rate. If it pleases the board, I would like to give a brief presentation, about 5 minutes, where we can walk through the staff recommendation, how we determined this recommendation, and then seek the board's guidance. I would begin with Sharon Whitmore, who will walk the board through our fiscal realities over the last 5 years and demonstrating the various declines in revenues as well as declines in expenditures, after which I will talk about some of the community indicators that lead us to our recommendation. Ms. Whitmore?
Thank you. We'll start with slide 1, which is tax trends. I'm in charge. Sorry about that. Since 2008, the countywide net real and personal property tax digest values have declined by over $7 billion, or 15.3%, from a high of $48 billion in 2008 to the current $40.6 billion in 2012. These declines are tied directly to the continued unprecedented global economic conditions. On the next slide, we're providing you with some information on property taxation from 2008 to 2012. During the last 3 years, while property values have fallen, the basic homestead exemption was doubled from $15,000 to $30,000. By keeping our millage rate constant, we've effectively enacted a tax cut. This example illustrates the reduction in property taxes on a $150,000 home in each year. In 2008, the property tax on a $150,000 home was $462.65, and in 2012, with no change in value or millage rate, the same $150,000 home would pay $308.43. This is a 33.3% decline. This next slide, when you apply the average decline in the property value of 15.3% from 2008 to 2012, a property valued at $150,000 in 2008 would be reduced to $127,050 in 2012, and the related property taxes declined from $462 to $214, or a 53.67% decrease. During the same period of time, our expenditure trends over the last 5 years depict our efforts made to reduce our expenditures from $641 million in 2007 to $558 million in 2011. This is a 13% decrease in our actual expenditures. This next slide provides a view of our the structural imbalance of our revenue and expenditure patterns since 2007. While we have steadily reduced our expenditures, revenues have fluctuated based on the timing of tax billing and collection, the collection of FIFAs, and ongoing resolution of property valuation appeals during this downward trending economic experience that we're having. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Whitmore. Some of the financial pressures that Fulton County has faced are not different than throughout the nation, but in many instances they're much more dramatic. the 15.3% decline over the 5-year period. Foreclosures have been a primary driver in the overall reduction of the tax digest, with a 14% vacancy rate, in large part contributed to by mortgage fraud, a lot of predatory lending, which led to mortgage fraud and foreclosures. Additionally, a homestead exemption that was applied to Fulton County by the state, where we are twice that of any other county, and this has contributed to a $48 million loss in revenue since implementation. Some of the community indicators. Atlanta was the first in the nation for foreclosures this past month, ahead of Nevada, California, and Florida. So the problem is still not over. If we look back in 2010, where we had 24,000 foreclosures countywide, 20,000 in 2011, and thus far in 2012, almost 7,500 foreclosures. Simultaneously, as our revenue has steadily declined, our population has grown by nearly 13%. Another important community indicator is our unemployment rate. From a low in 2007 of 4.9 to 10.5 in 2011. That's twice the pre-recession unemployment rate. This has contributed to increased demand on social and human services, which are general fund programs. Poverty rates. The 2010 poverty rate in Fulton County is almost 18%. So this demonstrates the significant need that still exists and continues to grow in Fulton County, which challenges our ability to provide service. Even as the community has needed our services more, we've reduced employees approximately 25% since 2007. And if you look at this graph, it demonstrates that employee reduction has been fairly even across the board. 30% A band, 19% B, 26C, 28D, and 28% E band, for an overall reduction of 23% of the workforce in 1,400 positions, over 1,400 positions. The chart shows the base of after the incorporation of Sandy Springs. So although there was some contributed to the incorporation of Johns Creek, Milton, and Chattahoochee Hills, it is clearly evident that the reduction in general fund positions has been quite significant. What are some of the ways that we've responded thus far? We've refocused our priorities. The board has refocused priorities and directed a commission strategic plan, directed key performance indicators, and we have implemented departmental business plans. Additionally, we have sought, with the board's direction, to establish an economic development function to increase revenue streams or to maintain existing revenue streams, and we have sought the assistance of outside collection agencies to collect outstanding debt. Additionally, we have secured increased grant funding. We've refinanced debt, Grady debt, and restructured other outstanding debt, including certificates of participation, to reduce our overall annual outlay for debt. And we have continued to use fund balance. Another way we have responded is continued use of borrowed funds for select projects. The Recovery Act funds come to mind. The mechanical engineering program at the jail is another. The unified case management. Many of these activities we're able to do through lease agreements or borrowing. We've continued to streamline operations. We've consolidated a number of departments. We're actively conducting operational assessments. We have completed one in general services, and we're about to conclude one in health and human services. We've conducted a number of process improvements, and we're looking to update certain policies and procedures, attempting to be more efficient and to manage increased service demands with approximately 1,400 less staff. what are our long-term risks associated with not adjusting the millage rate? Well, based on our history of our hierarchy of services and my recommended continue to evaluate all programs based on that, we may see sub-recommended reductions or eliminations of direct services, including certain arts programs, grants programs, which, for example, Human Services and Fresh Grants have been reduced approximately 40% thus far, reduced operating hours or staffing at art centers, reduced library hours, and other non-mandated activities, which would include some non-mandated justice programs, or evaluating how we are funding Grady, especially once their contract expires. Also, as we look forward, we have major considerations for not only 2013, but 2014. Those include the operating cost of the libraries. The classification and compensation study will have recommendations that in many respects may lead to increased pressures on the cost of staffing. The implementation of healthcare reforms, especially as it relates to part-time employees, and ongoing capital infrastructure needs. I'd like to have Sharon conclude with the actual numbers and cost of the proposal. Ms. Whitmore.
This last slide provides you with our recommendation for the general fund, which is a revenue neutral millage rate in 2012 of 10.791. The impact of that revenue neutral millage rate on the average residential parcel, if that parcel was valued at, the average residential parcel at 2011 of 200,000 at 10.281 mils, the current tax would have been $514.05. With the average change in value for 2012 on residential properties, that same property would be valued around $192,000 this year, and at 10.791 mils would pay roughly $505, which is a $9 decrease from their property tax amount in 2011.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to present. At this point, we would entertain any questions, but we request the board's authorization to move forward with an advertising of the proposed revenue neutral millage rate.
Okay, so just want everyone to be clear. This is just an advertisement. There's no decision being made about millage rate, readjustment, et cetera, today. It's just an advertisement.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. The board would, we would request the board vote on the July 11th meeting. This would simply be setting a maximum. If the board chose to reduce, they would be able to do that at the next meeting, but the board would not be able to increase the millage rate beyond whatever is advertised.